My name is Carla, and I've spent more of my life looking into a rear view mirror than any bathroom mirror I've ever owned. When you drive a cab in an American city for almost 20 years, that mirror becomes your second pair of eyes. You learn the faces of strangers in it. Who's anxious? Who's rude? Who's kind enough to ask how your night is going and actually listen to the answer? You also learn that to a lot of people, you're not really a person. You're just the driver. You slide into the back seat still on their phones, wave a credit card in your direction, and talk about you like you're a piece of the upholstery. You get used to it, or at least you tell yourself you do. I'm 54, divorced, with one grown daughter, and a mortgage that feels like it should have its own zip code. Driving nights and early mornings lets me pay the bills and help with my grandson's preschool tuition. It's not glamorous, but it's honest, and it's mine. The night this story really begins was a Thursday in late fall. It was one of those chilly evenings when the air feels thin and sharp, and your breath hangs in front of you like you're in some cheap movie. The trees along the sidewalks were almost bare, a few stubborn leaves clinging on in shades of rust and gold. I'd started my shift at 4 in the afternoon, right as the early commuters were heading home and the happy hour crowd was heading out. My cab, an aging yellow Crown Vic that rattled a little when the heater kicked in, smelled like the forever mix of coffee, fast food, and that one air freshener scent that claims to be new car, but never quite pulls it off. By 9:30, my back ached, my thermos was empty, and my brain had turned into one long mental meter, counting up fares and subtracting gas. I was thinking about whether I could squeeze in one more ride before taking a break when the dispatch app pinged with a new pickup. Pickup, Westside Hotel. Drop, Riverfront Plaza. Decent distance. Good tip area. I tapped accept and swung into the next turn lane. The Westside Hotel sits on a busy downtown corner, all glass and chrome and revolving doors. The kind of place where the doormen wear better coats than I own, and the lobby smells like money and eucalyptus. I pulled up to the curb, flipped on my light, and checked the name on the app. Hannah. A few seconds later, she appeared. Mid-30s maybe, in a tailored charcoal coat and ankle boots that probably cost more than my entire outfit. She had her hair pinned up in that professional. I woke up like this way that actually takes 20 minutes and a handful of bobby pins. In one hand, she carried a slim laptop tote, in the other, a leather purse and a paper cup with a latte sleeve. She glanced at my plate number, then stepped to the back door. Carla, she asked. That's me, I said. Riverfront Plaza. Yes, please, she replied, already half distracted, phone buzzing in her coat pocket. She slid into the back seat, juggling her things. I heard the soft thud of her purse hitting the seat beside her, or so I thought. Good evening, I said, pulling away from the curb. Evening, she murmured then. Hey, yeah, it's me, as she answered her phone. I'm on my way. No, don't start without me. At least pretend you need me. I smiled to myself and focused on the road. Downtown was doing its usual nighttime impression of a pinball machine. Cars darted between lanes. Pedestrians stepped off curbs without looking up from their screens. Delivery trucks blocked half the street at random intervals. I've driven this city through snowstorms, protests, parades, and playoff wins. Compared to that, Thursday night chaos barely moved the needle. In the mirror, I could see Hannah glancing between her phone and the window, talking fast. I know the client's flying in early, she said. Yes, the deck is in their inbox. No, Todd cannot run the meeting without me. Not after the last time. Her tone softened briefly. Mom, I'll call you back later, okay? She said into the phone at one point. Big night. No, I did eat, I promise. Love you. Then it hardened again as she switched calls. We hit a red light near the Arts District. group of college kids in jackets too thin for the weather laughed loudly on the sidewalk. A bus hissed as it came to a stop beside us. "So, how's your night going?" she asked suddenly, covering her phone with her hand for a second, like she needed a breather. "Can't complain," I said. "Nobody's thrown up in the back yet, so I'd call it a win." She laughed, for real this time. "Low bar, but fair," she said. "Thank you for doing what you do. I know people don't say that enough." Before I could respond, her other line rang, and she was back in corporate language. We pulled into Riverfront Plaza right on time, 9:48. Plaza was all glass towers around a central courtyard with a big lit fountain, the kind of place where you could smell money and ambition from the parking garage. I rolled up to the main entrance. "That's us," I said. "Perfect," she replied, already gathering her things. "Thank you, Carla. Have a good night." "You too," I said. She tapped her card, the fare went through, and then she was out the door, heels clicking across the pavement as she headed toward the revolving doors, phone still at her ear. I watched her disappear into the building, then pulled away from the curb and headed toward a quieter side street where I liked to park for breaks. 10 minutes later, I was parked under a streetlight, engine idling, my body finally starting to relax. I reached down for my thermos, remembered it was empty, and sighed. "Fine," I muttered. "Time to see if the vending machine still eats dollar bills." Before I got out, I did what I always do. I turned around to glance at the back seat. When you've been driving as long as I have, you learn to check after every ride. People leave all kinds of things behind. Umbrellas, scarves, takeout containers that smell like regret. Once, a single high heel. I still have no idea how that story ended. My eyes swept the floor, the seat, the far corner. That's when I saw it. A leather purse, lying on its side where Hannah had been sitting. The strap had slipped down into the footwell. Zipper was closed, but the whole thing screamed expensive from 3 feet away. "Aw, hell," I whispered. I picked it up. It was heavier than it looked. The leather was soft, the hardware sturdy. This was not a $20 impulse buy. This was the kind of bag that comes in a dust cover and has its own Instagram account. "Come on, lady," I murmured. "Tell me you noticed already." I fished my phone out and checked the app. No calls, no messages. I knew what was in that bag. Maybe not the exact contents, but I knew the type. Wallet, cards, cash, phone charger, makeup, maybe house or office keys, maybe something sentimental. And I knew exactly how it would feel when she reached into empty air and realized it was gone. I'd had my own version of that feeling once, years ago, when my daughter was little, and I misplaced my rent envelope for 2 hours. My stomach had dropped clear through the floor, my hands had shaken so badly, I couldn't turn the pages of the phone book as I retraced my steps. "Okay," I said to the purse, like it could hear me. "Let's get you back to your human." I unzipped it just far enough to look for an ID. The wallet was sleek, the kind you see in advertisements, all neat card slots and buttery leather. Her driver's license was right near the front, staring up at me with the same composed expression she'd worn getting into the cab. "Hannah Cole," it said. Beneath that, a home address across town and a date of birth that put her solidly in the millennial camp. There were credit cards, a gym membership, and a photo tucked into a clear sleeve, an older woman in a cardigan, laughing at something off camera, eyes crinkled with joy. "Mom, I'll call you later," echoed in my head. I zipped the wallet closed and checked the rest of the bag quickly, not to snoop, but to assess. There was a bundle of cash in a side pocket, more than I usually see people carrying these days. A small jewelry pouch I didn't dare open, a set of keys, a business card for Cole and Weston, consulting Riverfront Plaza. "Well, that narrows it down," I muttered. "At least I know where you work." leaned back in my seat and exhaled. Returning the purse meant going back to Riverfront Plaza, back through downtown traffic, back into that tight security circle, back on my own dime. And I'd already been driving for 5.5 hours. My lower back reminded me it existed with an angry throb. My gas gauge hovered lower than I liked to see it. But here's the thing. Some decisions aren't really decisions at all. They're just extensions of who you've been choosing to be over and over for years. If my daughter left her purse in a cab, I knew exactly what I'd pray that driver would do. "All right, Hannah," I said, starting the engine again. "Let's go get your heart out of my back seat." As I turned back toward the plaza, the dispatch app chimed with a new ride request. I hesitated for half a second, then swiped it away, hitting unavailable. "Not tonight," I said. "Tonight, we're off the meter." Traffic hadn't gotten any kinder in the last 15 minutes. A delivery truck blocked half a lane. An SUV decided turn signals were optional. People jaywalked like they were immortal. By the time I eased back into Riverfront Plaza's driveway, my jaw was tense from clenching. A security guard stepped toward the car, hand already raised in the universal move along gesture. "I'm just dropping something off," I called through the open window, holding up the purse. "Passenger left this in the back." He paused, looked at the bag, then at me. "Name?" he asked. "Hannah Cole," I said. "Works for Cole and Weston. I just dropped her here about 20 minutes ago." He studied me for a moment, then jerked his chin toward the curb. "Park there," he said. "I'll call up to the front desk." I pulled over and put the cab in park, watching people stream in and out of the building. Men and women in business casual and business serious, all with somewhere important to be. A few minutes later, a young woman in a blazer and flats came hurrying out, a lanyard bouncing against her chest. "Are you the driver?" she asked, slightly out of breath. "I am," I said. "Carla." "I'm Jenna," she replied, "Hannah's assistant. She just realized her purse is missing. She's in the middle of a meeting and about had a heart attack." "Sounds about right," I said, handing the bag over. "You might want to have her check everything." She unzipped it, glanced through the main compartment, then opened the wallet. Her eyes widened just a fraction at the sight of the cash, then she snapped it shut, nodding. "Everything looks untouched," she said. "Thank you. Seriously. Not everyone would come all the way back." I shrugged. "It's the right thing," I said simply. "Doesn't stop being the right thing just because it takes 10 extra miles." She smiled, almost surprised by the matter-of-factness of it. "Can I get your name and number?" she asked. "In case she wants to call you." I rattled off my name and cell, watched her type it into her phone, and then waved off her sheepish attempt to tuck a $20 bill into my hand. "You don't have to," she began. "I know," I said, "and that's why you don't have to either. We're good." She looked at me for a second, then nodded. "I'll make sure she knows exactly what you did," she said. "Have a good night, Carla." "You too," I said, pulling away from the curb. By the time I made it back to my usual corner for a break, my stomach was growling and the wind had turned colder. I bought a terrible vending machine coffee, leaned back in my seat, and tried to shake off the adrenaline. It felt good, knowing that by the time Hannah walked out of that meeting, her panic would be replaced by relief. That some stranger doing their job with a little extra care had made her whole again. That was enough reward for me. At least, that's what I thought. I had no idea that somewhere, in a glass conference room high above the city, a woman was making a very different calculation. She wasn't just thinking, "Thank goodness." She was thinking, how do you even begin to repay someone for giving you back more than money? And I had absolutely no idea that her answer to that question was going to change the shape of my own life in a way I never saw coming. I didn't expect to hear from Hannah again. I dropped plenty of wallets and phones at building lobbies over the years, Once in a while, someone would call the company and say thank you. Few even tracked me down to send a handwritten note or slip me a gift card for coffee. Most of the time, though, life just rolled on. They were relieved. I was content knowing I'd done the right thing. End of story. So, by the time the clock crept toward 11 that night, my mind had moved on to more immediate concerns: my empty stomach, my sore shoulders, and whether I could squeeze in one last airport run before heading home. The app was quiet. Streets had that late-night feeling where everything slows down just enough for you to hear your own thoughts. I just decided to call it a night when my phone, my personal phone, not the dispatch app, lit up with an unknown number. I considered letting it go to voicemail. Unknown numbers at 11 p.m. are usually either spam, wrong numbers, or relatives with bad news. But something nudged me, so I thumbed it on and held it to my ear. "Hello, this is Carla," I said. "Hi," a woman's voice replied. "This is Hannah Cole, from earlier tonight, the Westside Hotel to Riverfront Plaza." Her tone was different now, no corporate edge, no rush, just tired and very, very real. "Hi, Hannah," I said. "You get your purse back okay?" "I did," she said, and I could hear the exhale in those 2 words. My heart rate, however, is still recovering. I chuckled. "I figured you'd have a moment when you went to grab your wallet and found air," I said. "Been there." "You have no idea," she said. I just wrapped up the client meeting, reached down, and she stopped, probably remembering that stomach drop feeling. "Anyway," she continued, "Jenna told me you not only found the purse, you drove all the way back here to return it. Off the clock. Seemed like the right thing to do," I said. "Didn't exactly want to end your night by canceling all your cards." "It was more than that," she said softly. "There was a lot of cash in there, and other things. I saw just enough to know it was important," I said. "Didn't count, didn't dig, just enough to get it back to you." There was a small silence on the line. "Not everyone would have done that," she said. "I thought briefly of those news stories you sometimes see, Boston taxi drivers returning bags of cash, Vegas cabbies turning in paper bags, with hundreds of thousands of dollars left by gamblers. People who decide that sleeping well at night is worth more than a pile of bills." "Maybe not," I said. "But some do. I've read about them. Figured I'd rather be in that group than the other one." She laughed quietly. "Well, I'm glad you are," she said. "Listen, I know it's late, but are you anywhere near Riverfront right now?" I glanced at the cross streets outside my windshield. "About 15 minutes out," I said. "Why?" "I was hoping you might swing by," she said. "I'd like to thank you properly. In person, not just as a disembodied voice on the phone." "Oh, you already thanked me," I said. "And your assistant tried to tip me on top of that. We're square." "I don't mean a tip," she said, and there was something in her voice, earnest, almost vulnerable, that made me sit up a little straighter. "Just give me 10 minutes of your time. I promise I won't waste it." I looked at the clock. I thought about the extra gas, the extra minutes, the fact that my lower back felt like it had been replaced with concrete. And I thought about my daughter, Kristen, and the number of times life had kicked her when she was down. How I'd wished, on those days, that some stranger would go a little out of their way to make things easier for her. "All right," I said. "I can do that. I'll text you when I'm out front." "Thank you," she said. "Really, I'll be waiting in the lobby." I hung up, switched the app to unavailable again, and turned the car back toward the shining towers of Riverfront Plaza. As I drove, my mind did its usual dance, part hope, part cynicism. Maybe she wanted to hand me a thank you card. Maybe a Starbucks gift card. Maybe a speech about good people still existing in the world, which I'd heard before and never quite knew what to do with. Maybe she just needed closure, a chance to look the person who'd helped her in the eye and let her nervous system calm down. Whatever it was, I told myself I'd be polite. I'd say, It was no big deal, and I'd head home to my reheated leftovers and my creaky couch. I had no frame of reference for the thing that was actually about to happen. When I pulled up in front of the building, the plaza lights cast a soft glow across the fountain. The night air had turned colder still, the kind that slips through your jacket and settles in your bones. Hannah was already outside, standing near the revolving doors, her coat buttoned up, her hair now down around her shoulders in loose waves. She looked smaller than she had earlier somehow, less like high-powered consultant and more like human being at the end of a long, hard day. She walked up to the passenger side as I put the cab in park. "Hey, Carla," she said, opening the front door this time and sliding into the seat beside me instead of the back. "Hey," I replied. "Figured I'd give you a break from the backseat executive seating." She smiled. "Fair enough," she said. "I spent enough time being chauffeured to meeting rooms. Felt right to sit up here with you for this." We sat there for a second, the heater humming, the city noise muffled by the closed doors. "I won't keep you long," she said. "I know you've been on the road for hours." "Comes with the territory," I said, "but I appreciate that." She looked down at her hands for a moment, then took a breath. "When I realized my purse was missing," she said, "I was up on the 27th floor, halfway through a pitch I've been working on for 3 months. Big client, big stakes." "I figured it was something like that," I said, "the way you were talking earlier." I reached for my bag to grab a pen, she continued, and it just wasn't there. I knew immediately it had to be in your cab, because that's the last place I'd had it. She gave a humorless little laugh. "For a good 30 seconds, I swear I couldn't hear anything in that room," she said. "All I could think was, my credit cards, my ID, my apartment keys, my dad's money." "Your dad's?" I asked. She nodded. "Some of that cash was his," she said. "He sold his old truck last week. I was supposed to deposit the money, but he asked if I'd keep some of it aside, said he had an idea. He's in his 70s, doesn't do online banking. That was his nest egg in there." She shook her head. "I felt like the worst daughter in the world," she said. "I could hear my mom's voice in my head, you know. She passed away last year, but I could hear her saying, 'Hannah, you're too scattered. Slow down, breathe.'" Her eyes shone for a second in the dashboard light. "And then Jenna slipped into the back of the room and held up my purse like some kind of miracle," she said. She whispered. "The cab driver came back. Everything's still in it." I could picture it, the conference room, the polished table, the slide deck on the screen, the sudden jolt of relief. "I can't even explain what that felt like," she said. "Like someone had reached into that free fall and yanked me back onto solid ground." "Everybody loses something sometimes," I said. "Not everybody gets it back." "Exactly," she said. "And that's why I didn't want to just tuck this away as, oh, good, that worked out. I wanted to look you in the eye and say, what you did mattered." Lot, I shifted in my seat, a little uncomfortable with the intensity of her gratitude. "I appreciate you saying that," I said, "really. But for me, it was just doing my job the way I think it's supposed to be done." "I know," she said, "and that's the part that gets me." She reached into her coat and pulled out a white envelope. "Here we go," I thought. "Here comes the cash." I opened my mouth. "If that's money," I started. "It's not," she said quickly. "At least, not the way you're thinking." She held it out. "Carla, I spent most of this afternoon feeling like I'd failed everyone who ever taught me to be a decent human," she said. "My parents worked blue-collar jobs their whole lives. They didn't have much, but they were the kind of people who would drive across town to return a dropped 20. They raised me to believe that character mattered." "It does," I said. "When Jenna told me you had come back with my purse, untouched," she continued, "that UD refused a tip and just said, 'It's the right thing to do,' I felt like the universe had just poked me in the ribs and said, 'See, they still exist. People like my parents. People like you. She placed the envelope on the dashboard between us. I've been thinking all evening about how to say thank you in a way that actually fits, she said. Not a tip, not a gift card. Something you would never buy for yourself, but absolutely deserve. I eyed the envelope. Just open it, she said gently. Please. I hesitated, then picked it up. The paper was thick, the kind you use for formal letters. My name was written on the front in neat, careful handwriting. Carla. Inside, there were no bills, no check, just a stapled stack of printed confirmations. At first, my brain saw them as ordinary paperwork, logos, numbers, fine print. Then my eyes caught on certain words. Round-trip airfare. 7 days, 6 nights. Oceanfront resort. All-inclusive package. Guest Carla Green, +1. I stared. I don't understand, I said. It's a vacation, she said simply. Your vacation. I looked at her, then back at the papers, then back at her again. This can't be right, I said, my voice thinner than I meant for it to be. There's no way this is for me. It is, she said. I booked it myself. The agent thought I was out of my mind when I gave him someone else's name and said, no, really, it's a gift. My heart thudded in my chest. Where? I asked, though the answer was printed right there. She smiled. Hilton Head, she said. South Carolina, oceanfront. Late spring, right before it gets sweltering. You and whoever you want to bring. All paid for. Flights, hotel, food, the whole 9 yards. My mouth went dry. I can't take this, I said automatically. Decades of don't make a fuss. Don't take charity kicking in like a reflex. It's too much. It's not charity, she said firmly. It's a thank you. From someone whose worst day you turned around with one honest decision. I shook my head, still reeling. Hannah, I'm a cab driver, I said. I haven't taken a real vacation in, I stopped. Tried to remember. Have you ever? She asked quietly. A real one. Plane, hotel, the works. No, I admitted. When my daughter was little, we did weekend trips. Drove to the lake. Stayed at a budget motel off the highway. We made it special. But this is something else. Exactly, she said. You'd never spend this kind of money on yourself. I know that. My parents wouldn't have either. People like you always put everyone else first. Kids, bills, car repairs. Joy becomes the thing you squeeze into leftover corners, if there are any. She nodded toward the papers. Let me put it this way, she said. That cash in my purse, a good chunk of it was supposed to go toward something nice for my dad. He sold his truck after he stopped driving nights. I was holding on to the money for him until we figured out what that nice thing was. She blew out a breath. When I thought it was gone, I felt like I'd broken something inside him I couldn't fix, she said. When I got it back, I promised myself I would stop waiting for the perfect moment and actually use it for what we talked about, doing something that says, your life mattered, your honesty mattered. She looked right at me. You remind me of him, she said. The way you talked about doing the right thing, the way you brushed off the idea of a reward, the way you saw returning my purse as normal instead of heroic. I swallowed hard. Hannah, I don't know what to say, I managed. Say you'll think about it, she replied. That's all. You don't have to decide right now. Take it home, sleep on it, talk to your daughter. But please don't say no because you think you're not allowed to have something that nice. I felt something sting behind my eyes. It just feels like too big a leap, I said. 1 minute I'm dropping you at a meeting. The next, I'm supposed to picture myself on a beach in a lounge chair. Yeah, she said softly. That's kind of the point. Sometimes karma doesn't send you a lightning bolt. Sometimes it sends you a boarding pass. That line made me laugh, even as my throat tightened. I looked down at the reservation again, at my own name printed clear as day, at the dates far enough in the future to plan for, not so far that life could swallow them whole. You said +1, I murmured. Of course, she said. I don't know your family situation, but I assumed there's someone you'd want to share this with. A daughter, a sister, a friend. My daughter, I said automatically. Kristen, she's 32, works full-time, raises my grandson, never has 2 nickels to rub together at the end of the month. I could suddenly see them both, my girl, and that 4-year-old kid with my eyes and his father's stubborn chin, standing on a beach somewhere, laughing as the waves chased their ankles. Something in my chest broke open a little. Hannah, I don't even have a word for this, I said. Call it repayment, she said. For the panic attack you spared me. For the hours of sleep I got back tonight. For reminding me that my parents weren't naive when they said honesty still exists. She reached into her coat one more time and pulled out a small rectangular box. And this, she added, placing it on the console between us, is for Kristen. Before you yell, it's not cash. Just something I think she might appreciate. I narrowed my eyes, suspicious. What is it? I asked. A nice watch, she said. Nothing crazy. Better than the dollar store one I saw on your dash earlier. I looked at the cheap digital clock I'd stuck above the radio 6 months ago when the actual dashboard clock died. It still works, I said defensively. I'm sure it does, she said. This one just might make her feel seen, like somebody out there believes her time is worth something. We sat there for another moment, the weight of the envelope in my hand, the city lights flashing across the windshield. All right, I said finally, voice low. I'll think about it. I promise I will. She smiled, relief softening the lines of her face. That's all I ask, she said. And Carla, yeah, someday, when you're sitting on that balcony, listening to the ocean instead of traffic, I hope you remember that that trip didn't fall out of the sky. You earned it. The day you decided that doing the right thing mattered more than what was in someone else's purse. I nodded slowly. I'll try, I said. She opened the door, the cold air rushing in. Have a good night, she said. And thank you again for proving my parents right. Then she was gone, back through the revolving doors, back into elevators and emails, and whatever awaited her on the 27th floor. I stared at the papers in my hand for a long time. Then, for the first time in months, I turned the meter off early and pointed the cab toward home. At the next red light, I snapped a quick photo of the reservation on my phone and texted it to Kristen with a single line. Don't freak out. We'll explain when I get home. I knew, even before her reply dinged back with a string of question marks and exclamation points, that whatever this was, my life had just taken a turn as sharp as any the cab ever had. And I had no idea yet how sweet the road ahead was going to be. When I walked into our little duplex that night, Kristen was already standing in the kitchen, phone in hand, eyes wide. She held up the screen like it was evidence in a trial. Mom, she said, what is this? I hung my jacket on the back of a chair and dropped my keys in the bowl by the door, buying myself a second. That, I said, is apparently our spring vacation. She blinked. Our what? I laughed, a little shakier than I meant to. Sit down, I said. This is going to sound nuts if I just blurt it out. We settled at the scarred kitchen table we'd had since she was in middle school, 2 chipped mugs of decaf between us, the hum of the old fridge filling the quiet. I told her everything. The late night ride from the hotel, the lost purse, the extra drive back to Riverfront, the call, the envelope, the reservation with my name on it, the watch box now sitting on the counter. By the time I finished, her mouth was open. So you just took it back, she said. Well, yeah, I said. What else was I supposed to do? Spend it? She shook her head. No, she said quickly. I know that. It's just you always told me doing the right thing matters, even when no one sees it. I believed you. I just didn't think it ever turned into something like this. She tapped the phone screen. You should have seen Dad's face when I told him we might get to the beach someday. she added quietly. He used to say, heard that before. Her father, my ex, had a knack for promising big and delivering small. Life had taught her to expect little extras, not life-changing surprises. This isn't a promise I'm making, I said. This is a thing that's already booked, paid for, in my name. The only question is, do we use it, or do we let fear talk us out of it? She sat back, considering. Mom, it's a week, she said. You'd be off the road. I'd have to ask for time off work. We'd have to figure out childcare. It's not nothing. No, I said. Believe me, I have a whole committee in my head listing all the reasons it's impractical. She smiled faintly. And yet, I added, I keep thinking about how many times we've both said, maybe next year. How many summers we've watched other people's vacation photos and said, must be nice. She looked at me, really looked. When was the last time you did something big just because you wanted to, Mom? She asked. Not because you had to, or someone needed you to, or the bills demanded it. For you, I opened my mouth, closed it. I don't remember, I admitted. She reached across the table and put her hand over mine. Then maybe this is the universe saying, hey Carla, you get one too, she said. Just once, I swallowed. So, I asked, are we really thinking about this? Like seriously, she grinned. I'm thinking we're going to the beach, she said. You, me, and a suitcase that doesn't have your work boots in it. I laughed, the sound catching in my chest. Okay, I said. We're doing it. Words hung there between us, wild and wonderful. Over the next few weeks, it became real in small steps. I called the travel agency listed on the papers. A very cheerful woman confirmed everything, flights, hotel dates. Yes, it was all paid for. No, there were no surprise fees. Yes, I could bring my daughter. This is a very nice gift, the agent said. You must have done something special. I returned something that wasn't mine, I said. She paused. Those are my favorite kinds of calls, she replied. Kristen requested time off from the clinic where she worked reception. Her boss, bless her, said, if you don't go, I'll be mad at you. We arranged for my grandson, Eli, to spend the week with his other grandparents. He took the news bravely, especially after Kristen promised to bring him back shells from the real ocean, not just the souvenir shop. I had my mechanic check the cab over, changed the oil, and left a note at the company. Unavailable these dates. Will work extra before and after. The night before we flew out, I stood in my bedroom looking at the open suitcase on my bed. It felt strange to pack clothes that weren't work clothes, to fold swimsuits and sundresses instead of heavy jackets and comfortable shoes. I tucked in a paperback I'd never made time to start, a floppy hat that still had the tag on, a bottle of sunscreen from last summer that had never been opened. I paused, then added one more thing, an old Polaroid of Kristen as a little girl at the local lake, grinning, sand on her nose. Let's upgrade that memory, I murmured. The airport, when we got there, felt like another world. Kristen and I took a selfie at the gate, both wearing our best, I can't believe this is happening expressions. She posted it with the caption, my mom did an honest thing. The universe noticed. Headed to the beach with my favorite cab driver. Friends commented things like, this gives me hope, and your mom is a legend. On the plane, as we buckled in, she reached for my hand. You okay? She asked. I'm nervous, I admitted. I've spent my life taking people to the airport, not through it. She squeezed my fingers. Then for this 1 week, she said, let me drive. When the wheels left the ground, my stomach dropped and then leveled out into something unexpected. Not fear, not regret, relief. A few hours and one bumpy landing later, we stepped out into air that smelled different from home, warmer, heavier, tinged with salt. The shuttle ride to the hotel took us past palm trees and low-slung houses with wide porches. Every so often, the road curved just enough for us to glimpse it, a strip of blue stretching beyond anything my eyes were used to. The ocean, I whispered. Our room was on the 5th floor, with a balcony that looked straight out over the beach. The first time I stepped outside and heard the steady rush of waves, my whole body went quiet in a way it hadn't in years. No horns, I said softly. No sirens. Just water, Kristen said beside me. People who don't know or care how many miles are on your cab. We spent the week doing things I wouldn't have believed if you told me a year earlier. We slept past dawn without an alarm. We walked along the shoreline barefoot, letting the foam curl around our ankles, laughing when a bigger wave splashed higher than we expected. We ate breakfast we didn't cook and drank coffee we didn't make. We sat by the pool and read books, and people watched without having anywhere else we had to be. On the 3rd day, Kristen convinced me to try one of those fruity drinks that come in a ridiculous glass with a tiny umbrella. This is what she meant, she said, snapping a photo as I raised it to my lips. Order something overpriced and don't feel guilty. I took a sip. It tasted like pineapple and vacation, and absolutely nothing practical. For the record, I said, this is the most unnecessary thing I have ever enjoyed. Good, she said. You're allowed. One afternoon, as the sun started to sink and the sky turned soft shades of pink and orange, we sat on the balcony in plastic chairs, wrapped in towels still damp from the pool. I keep thinking about her, I said quietly. About Hannah. About how we're here because she decided my honesty was worth all of this. Kristen nodded. Have you heard from her? She asked. A couple of texts, I said. She asked if we made it okay. Wanted a picture of our view. I sent her the one of you and the ridiculous drink. Kristen smiled. Good, she said. She deserves to see what she did. I watched the waves for a minute. You know what's funny, I said. I didn't return that purse thinking anything like this would happen. Honestly, I didn't think beyond get it back to her. I know, she said. And if she just called and said thank you, I continued, I'd have been fine with that. Happy, even. But this, I gestured at the horizon. This feels like someone took every time I chose the harder right over the easier wrong, tossed it in a pot, and cooked it down into one splashy, impossible thing, I said. Like karma finally got around to my name in the stack. Kristen leaned her head on my shoulder. Maybe that's what makes it so sweet, she said. You weren't keeping score, but someone else was. We sat there until the sun slid fully below the waterline and the first stars appeared. Our last night, we walked down to the beach after dinner. Families were still out, kids running in and out of the surf, couples strolling with their hands linked. Somewhere down the sand, someone played an old song on a portable speaker. The sound carried just enough by the wind that it felt like a soundtrack instead of a concert. Kristen bent to pick up a shell, turning it over in her hand. I was thinking, she said, when we get back, maybe we start a little savings jar. For what? I asked. For our own kindness fund, she said. Nothing huge. Just a place to put $5 here, $10 there. And when it adds up, we use it to do something nice for somebody who isn't expecting it. I smiled. Pay it forward, I asked. Something like that, she said. Feels wrong to let all this stop with us. I looked around at the water, the sky, the strangers who'd go home with sand in their shoes, just like we would. You know, I said, if you told me 6 months ago that the first time I saw the Atlantic Ocean, it would be because I did my job the way my mother raised me to, I'd have laughed you out of the room. And yet, she said, gesturing at the waves, here we are. Here we are, I agreed. When we flew back home, the city looked different from the sky. From up there, the roads I usually drove felt small and manageable. The endless loops of highways shrank to lines of light. As we taxied back to the gate, my phone buzzed with the familiar pings of the cab company app, reminding me that life was waiting bills, shifts, miles. But something in me had shifted permanently. The next time a passenger left something in my back seat, I didn't hesitate. I never had, really. But now, when I handed them back their forgotten phone or wallet or shopping bag, I did it with a little extra grace. Because I knew, in my bones, that these small choices matter more than we give them credit. Not because they might earn us a vacation. That's a rare kind of lightning strike. But because they knit something together in the world that our broken edges are always trying to tear apart. Honesty, kindness, the belief that doing right by each other still counts, even when no one is filming, even when there's no headline in it. Sometimes, those choices ripple back to you in a big way, with a boarding pass and a balcony view. Often, they ripple out quietly, in the way your grown daughter looks at you with pride, or your grandson tells his teacher, "My grandma doesn't keep things that don't belong to her," like that's the most natural thing in the world. If you're listening to this, maybe from a kitchen table that's seen better days, or from a quiet house after everyone else has gone to bed, here's what I hope you'll take from my story. You don't have to chase grand gestures to deserve something beautiful. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep choosing the honest thing, the kind thing, the this helps someone else breathe easier thing whenever you can. Most days, your reward will be simple: a clear conscience, a decent night's sleep, the quiet satisfaction of knowing you did right. And then, once in a blue moon, life might turn around, tap you on the shoulder, and say, "Hey, you've been putting good out there for a long time. How about we send a little back?" Maybe it won't be a vacation. Maybe it'll be a diagnosis that turns out better than expected. Or a check that arrives the week you're wondering how to pay for a repair. Or a stranger who steps in for your kid the way you wish you could. Whatever form it takes, I hope when it shows up, you let yourself receive it. Because that's part of the lesson too. You're not just here to give and give until you're empty. You're allowed to sit on the balcony now, and then listen to the waves, and remember that your honesty, your effort, your quiet goodness in a loud world, they matter. For me, it looked like a cab ride, a lost purse, and a week on a beach I never thought I'd see. For you, it might look different. But trust me on this, when you keep planting little seeds of honesty along your route, sooner or later, something beautiful blooms back toward you. Sometimes, it even comes with an ocean view.